Hey everyone, SirHadoken here. I was thinking about the implication of the gauntlets in Geometry Dash, and something really struck out to me and it really made me want to make this series. And that is that, specifically with the audience of new players towards which the game is targeted, there is this sort of importance placed on the gauntlets, not just as a player milestone, but as a creator milestone. And I feel that perhaps there should be something addressed regarding whether or not the gauntlets are a credible source to be used as a reference as to how levels should be built in this period of time, since the map packs have gotten rather outdated, and some people still use those as a reference. So let's get started with the Fire Gauntlet. Now, I'm going to be judging these levels from the worst to the best in the Gauntlet, and I'm going to be offering some critiques or suggestions for things that could be improved, and praising the things that have been done well. So let's get started with number 5. Sorry, fault. You have improved recently, but I want to point out some things in Overture that I don't want to be inherited by new creators. These black transitions being one of them. Now, if you notice here, the color combinations between the object and the background are a little bit unsettling. And you can tell that there's air decoration there. You can see the stars and the clouds, but they blend into the background so much that it's almost like they're not really filling up as much space as they should be. Now, I'm noticing that there isn't a whole lot of variation in the block design over time, and that's something that is really hard to maintain. I would know. I've built an entire level in the same style, but I feel like it's a habit that should be kicked early for new creators, and I feel like this is a level that doesn't really encourage that. So, this last part, I can tell that it's just like an outro, but it could still use a little bit more air decoration nonetheless. Let's move on to number 4. So a lot of the problems that I have with Overture, I have with this a little bit as well. It doesn't seem like the block design changes much throughout the level. It does more so than in Overture, but it still is quite empty. There is air decoration visible, but it just seems like it doesn't occupy as much space as it should. And that space management is really something that just comes down to practice and experience and just trying again if it doesn't work out the first time. Now, you can kind of tell that it's gotten to a point where it's halfway into the level and it doesn't really seem like it's taken us anywhere. And levels should really be seen as like a journey from the beginning to the end. And when both the beginning and the end feel and look exactly the same, it doesn't feel like you're being moved anywhere. Now, this boss fight is a nice change from the rest, but there's still a lack of air decoration. And really, with bosses like these, simple bosses, they don't quite usually work out very well, but it's really up to you. Let's move on, shall we? Oh boy, Magmatic Sanctuary. Where do I even begin? Sorry, Radiation. I know you were really proud of this when you released it, and it really does fit the theme well, and I wish I could have put it higher on the list, but the theme of the Gauntlet is decided by RobTop and not the creator, so I felt that it would be unfair if I judged it based on that. And the reality is that a lot of the block design in the level before the drop feels like it's just bricks, and not much more than just the bricks. And I feel like you did pull it off rather well for what it's worth, but it's not a technique that I would encourage new creators to try to follow. And the air decoration does seem a little lacking regardless. And I understand that with themed levels it's kind of limited, but still, some dust or lava drips, anything would really work. This part here, new creators don't try this at home, honestly. Radiation pulled it off better than most people could, but the reality is that invisible speed portals are really, really not something that people want to see. They're very hard to read, and it's very frustrating to play. I've beaten this level 2 times already, and it took me half an hour to beat it again to record it. So with that being said, just keep in mind that anything invisible is just not a good idea. Something I do want to point out is that the design improved drastically here towards the end of the level, but that inconsistency is something you want to watch out for. Yes, I know, I'm a hypocrite again, let's move on. Okay, this may seem like a questionable decision, but hear me out. Now, I feel like this has a lot to do with what I mentioned in Magmatic Sanctuary, with touchy gameplay with weird speed changes, except they're more visible. I'm not a fan of all of the black transitions in this level that you see, but clearly there's a lot more density and variation in the design. And I feel like that's something important that sets it apart from Magmatic Sanctuary in that sense. It's still got a few bumpy transitions like that one at the drop, and the gameplay is by no means perfect. However, I think it is important to note that it sets itself apart from Magmatic Sanctuary in design, variation, gameplay, and consistency. Okay, so this is kind of a questionable first place, I understand that, but I feel like in terms of what I've been grabbing on the other levels, I feel like this sort of fits what I've been describing perfectly. The block design is fairly simple, but it still varies. The colors specifically make the minimal air decoration stand out to the point where it doesn't feel as empty as it could. It's primarily focused on sync. All of the transitions are fairly visible. The gameplay is quite enjoyable, I would say. The design isn't lackluster, and nor is the gameplay, and I feel like with all of these other levels, it's come down to one being super proficient and the other being very lackluster. And I feel like the balance between the two is really more what new creators should be focusing on, rather than being super skilled at one and completely ignoring the other. Alright, that's the end of the Fire Gauntlet Judgment video. Let me know if you want more of these, I guess. I kind of do really want to make more of them, but I don't know how it's gonna go. I already have recordings planned for a bunch of other ones, but I just want to know if it's helpful or not. I feel like I should have started the series with another gauntlet, because this one's a little bit weird. I don't personally like the Fire Gauntlet really that much, but I have a bit more to say for other gauntlets that have already been presented to you all, so hopefully you enjoyed or learned something or something like that. See you around.